Good to see you. So why don't we start with some just very brief intros on what you're focused on right now. And if you could summarize your investing thesis in like under 30 seconds, we'd love to hear that before we get into the minutia. Go for it, Anand. Start us off.
Cool. I thought you were going to pass it on to him first. But can you folks hear me okay? I don't know if it's... Okay, cool. I get a thumbs up. I've forgotten your questions already. So introduce what we're doing and what we're excited about. All right. I'll try to keep it punchy in under 30 seconds, but I've had this long-standing thesis that, we were building blockchain infrastructure, decentralized networks. To me, finance was the first way to prove that these things work at scale. So I guess commensurate to the stage we're on, which is frontier, I think there's a lot of frontier technologies that can be built on top of decentralized networks. So that's our investment thesis. What else can we put blockchains to work for beyond finance? Because finance is here to stay and it's obviously growing as a big market. So that is succinctly our thesis, frontier networks on blockchains.
And just kind of for the audience, the name of your firm and what you're, and for everyone can find you as well afterwards and stuff.
Yep, early stage firm based in San Francisco. Lived there for my entire career. We're called Canonical, and you can easily find me on Twitter where I talk a lot about AI and crypto, and I'm just at AI. That's me.
And on to you, sir.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kelvin Koh. I'm one of the co-founders of Spartan Group, which basically does two things in the space, right? One is we invest. So we have two VC funds that invest in early stage startups, and we also have two liquid funds, one directional, one market neutral. And then separate from that, we also have an advisory business that works with crypto startups to help them raise capital, do M&A, do restructuring, get listed, and so on and so forth. In terms of what we are interested in or excited about, we've been investing in the space for about 8 years. So we've seen the whole journey from the birth of, I guess, Ethereum and a lot of these other L1s to the adoption of DeFi and now increasingly many other verticals, including AI. And we're looking for great startups that are building interesting products helping to basically build the ecosystem of the future.
I would love to hear from you both on how would you describe right now the temperature of the AI and more specifically decentralized AI space, right? Would you think are we in a bubble? Is it overly frothy? Was there too much dumb money that came in? Now it's being flushed out? Or is it, no, we're actually underinvested, undercapitalized? And how would you describe the overall kind of lay of the land right now?
Yeah. So I think there's two ways to think about this. I've been in venture for quite some time. I've been through the startup journey myself. There comes a point in time when a category gets so hot, it gets so big and this bubble starts to build and grow, that a lot of money starts to flow in, a lot of talent gets excited, wants to build things, and the marketplace starts to hum really well. And slowly after that, we'll start to see a trough. We'll start to see some dissipation because there was just too many things that started to happen, some of which were just not venture investable categories. I think we're in the trough right now because we tried to do a lot between the last couple of years. That doesn't mean that there weren't really credible, awesome projects that came out of last vintage, but we're kind of going through this midlife crisis, trying to find out exactly where the strength
Taking that
lies.
a little personally, midlife crisis, but I agree.
Me too, by the way, you and me both. So,
sorry, Anna, are you talking about crypto or are you talking?
Is there a couch here I can lay down for some therapy? I'd appreciate that.
We have therapy. I'm talking. His question was around decentralized AI specifically, so that's what I'm referring to. And maybe it might be emblematic of crypto at large, but to me, that intersection is I think we're going through a little bit of a discovery process to find out exactly how we put more things to work. I'll pause there. I've got more thoughts, but that's where I think we are. It's a little. I think we went through a frothy period. We're going through a little bit of a dry spell now, but invariably, I think venture outcome is going to come from smart people wanting to build here, and those smart people are heavily catalyzed by AI.
Kelvin, we'll get into more nuance in a bit, but at a high level, how would you describe kind of your overall where the wind is blowing and your temperature in the space right now?
Yeah, so we started investing in crypto in 2017, right? And at that time, we had obviously the ICO boom, and there were a lot of deal flow. And incidentally, right before crypto, I was just broadly looking at early stage tech, right? And identified very quickly that AI and crypto were probably the two technologies that would define the next 20 to 30 years. Interestingly, back in 2017, there weren't many AI startups to invest in, right? And the few that were around, the Silicon Valley, capital was all over them, right? So very few opportunities. Whereas in crypto in 2017, with the ICO boom, there were just hundreds of startups that were looking to raise capital, right? And so it's interesting from my perspective, sitting here today, to see those two sort of categories attracting most of the capital globally. But also interesting to see how AI has, in a way, sort of caught up and attracted a lot more attention and capital. I think that's fair because AI sort of got immediate product market fit, right? It's just onboarded hundreds of millions of users instantly, right? Whereas crypto has been on this long journey and still trying to find the product market fit. But I think there's a bubble in the AI space at the moment, just because I lived through the internet bubble 1.0, right, where you see a lot of the same dynamics happening, whether that's super inflated valuations, whether it's circular deals and whatnot, and at some point, the valuations outrun reality, right? And when the reality doesn't meet expectations, then you have a massive sort of correction and everything that sort of follows, right? But I have no doubt that AI and crypto are going to be very important technologies. And it's just a matter of where the price is relative to where the adoption is.
So I'm going to spring something on you, a game, and there was zero scripting of this. This is very off the cuff, a game of over-under. I would love each of your thoughts on where is the crypto/AI space over-indexed and where is it under-indexed. Let's mix it up. Kelvin, start with you. Give me an over or under, dealer's choice.
I think where it is over-indexed is people are expecting decentralized AI, meaning crypto AI, right, to compete with centralized AI. And this will be in things like, the foundational models and things like that, anything that's capital intensive, right? I just don't think that there is enough capital in the crypto AI intersection to be able to compete with centralized AI. You just look at the amount of capital, it's just night and day.
And also my guess is that the further, if this space gets a bit behind, it could be very difficult to catch up, right? If centralized AI throwing potentially trillions of dollars in GPU, does that delta expand? Or I guess the counter argument is open source systems might provide the catalyst and juice for it to catch up. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see open source or decentralized AI sort of becoming useful is in certain specialized areas.
Yeah.
Where you either need verification or you need, I guess, censorship resistance. Or there are certain verticals that are very specialized such that they require the crypto rails for it to excel, right? Outside of those areas, I think centralized AI I think the user base is bigger. I think the amount of resources they have just makes it very difficult for decentralized AI to compete.
Programming note, stick around for later on in the afternoon. We'll hear some other perspectives arguing that decentralized AI will in fact have some special merits to take that on. But I love this these are both interesting regional arguments. Let's get you in the mix of this, Anand. We'll give us an over-under, and then we'll go back and forth on that.
Yeah. So let's look at the rubric, right? Like what makes something over-indexable, what makes something under-investable or indexable, right? Some things just become easy to do, right? Like what blockchains have been historically good at is aggregating compute to solve a problem, right? We can incentivize the network to be like, hey, let's bootstrap this network, and then there will be a problem for the solution that we've just created. We've been really good at that for a while. So what is over-indexed? We think we're GPU starved, so we saw a lot of GPU marketplaces come up because let's just put together a marketplace and throw this solution at a problem. There hasn't been enough utility there because there's a lot of technicalities that prevent this from actually being viable in the real world. So again, we don't have the users to be able to solve the problems to use this particular solution. So I think we're over-indexed in that as a category. under-indexed is actually trying to find a full-stack solution to solve a problem, right? So again, to take a step back, well, we saw a lot of this happen in crypto. You've been around for a long time. We were in sort of research mode. We were trying to prove that these technologies were possible, right? For the longest time, we're like, let's build scalable solutions because we think the traction will come. So we saw a lot of a vintage of companies that were born that were just trying to solve hard research problems without a user in mind. Now, the script is pivoted, like even in centralized AI, so to speak, you won't find many general purpose research labs anymore. I don't think that's an investable category. You will find companies that are saying, we're trying to solve this problem. We're trying to solve AI for science. We're trying to solve AI for drug discovery, right? And then when you start at the top, suddenly you're going to go down stack and try to create a model. You need compute. You need to know how to do inference. You need data, blah, 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 blah. So I think we're trying to solve each of these problems individually in crypto for a while. And now it's incumbent upon us to say, that speculation is not going to drive the ability to create product anymore. We have to think about the users first. So to me, that's largely under-indexed.
I love that. Kelvin, given your kind of your thesis about centralized AI and the advantage that it has naturally, where do you see in the tech stack, where is there more merit or kind of rich soil for crypto/AI, decentralized AI to come into play and kind of to create actual real wins for consumers, which is what matters ultimately?
Right. Well, I think from a VC kind of standpoint, I think the application layer probably is most interesting for us, because if you think about the foundational models or you think about the whatever cloud infrastructure and so on, I mean, there's a lot of capital in that space already, right? And it's relatively mature. I think you're going to see a lot of that become commoditized pretty quickly. And a lot of these startups are already sort of, tens and hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So less interesting sort of from a...
Billions.
Yeah. Billion.
Yeah, glad you caught that. Billion. This is not a small amount of capital we're talking about here.
Yeah. So I think from a VC standpoint, I think the application layer is where it's most interesting, generally, right, for AI, not specifically talking about decentralized. And I think where the and we're already starting to see a bit of this sort of play out in the public markets even, right? You see in recent weeks a lot of these traditional SaaS companies stocks sort of getting sold off.
That is the big question right now. I'm sure a lot of this crowd is exploring this. Is SaaS dead? As AI killing SaaS? Well, actually, what are your thoughts on that? Just a bit of a adjacent topic. I would love just a quick response to that. Is SaaS dead?
I mean, I don't think they're dead yet.
Yeah.
But obviously,
are they dying?
Yeah. The market is obviously looking into the future, right, and saying, okay, now you've got a legal AI, tool,
right,
so much more powerful, right, and maybe the economics are even more attractive than the SaaS sort of platform that you're using at the moment, right? You can extend that from legal to medical to finance, and so the market's sort of going through and sifting through all of these categories and say, where is the AI capable of disrupting these traditional business models, and sort of trying to price that in real time ahead of what you actually see in terms of their financials getting impacted.
One word.
Please. One thing to that. I think this is a loaded topic and it's extremely topical. So I'll just take maybe a minute. I'll give you some case studies, right? And it's a yes and. There were, I started my career working on Microsoft. I'm still long on that company. There was like $100 billion worth of a tremendous amount of market cap value got wiped. Salesforce stock dropped. Monday.com, which is another SaaS company, purely dropped. But there's two case studies as to why this became very topical. First of all, there are companies that are building their own systems internally now that compete with CRMs. I can tell you two companies specifically, Ramp.com, Netlify. They both came out and said, we've actually built our own internal CRM system, and we did it in anywhere from 3 days to 2 weeks. Right? So if you talk about the incumbent solutions who've been doing this for decades.
Someone just built a CRM system in the last 5 minutes in this crowd, I think.
I think someone just vibe coded it right now. So it's very possible to do that. We've been hacking on our own internal systems, and we don't feel this compulsion to pay thousands of dollars per seat per month to solve a problem that we can solve ourselves. So I think it's we used to ask this VC question back in the day, which was, what if Google built what you're building right now, right? What if Amazon built it? What if Microsoft built it? Now the question is, can Claude Code build it for you? right? Like that's the transition we're going through.
Totally.
And we're doing it ourselves. So that, to me, is a big contention. And that's something we hadn't really underwritten before.
So totally agree. To piggyback off that on Cloud Build It For You, a word we have heard over and over today, we'll hear it more this afternoon, and everyone's saying it all throughout AI land is agents, right? It was the buzziest word of all of AI last year. No question it will be this year. I'm guilty of that myself. How are you thinking about agents from an investing thesis? Are we in an agent bubble? Is it something that you even can invest in? What are your agentic thoughts with respect to investing? Or should I ask your agents? Do your agents have thoughts on this?
I know, yeah. Please use Moltbook to have my agent respond to this. As an investable category, so again, we have to think about value accrual. To be completely candid, when this whole OpenClaw thing started, I don't even remember the first iteration of the name, which only happened 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, it's changed 5 times.
It's changed several times since then. But I didn't quite grasp how powerful this thing could be. I have come to realize that it is a very powerful framework now. Creating frameworks like that might be open source, and then the ecosystem that it facilitates around it seems really fascinating, right? What I think this will pivot into, and I don't know if this is venture scalable or not, but that's the question mark that I have. There are going to be more billion-dollar companies that will come out of this vintage than ever before because it's so easy to build these agentic tooling that other people might be able to leverage. You might be able to do it yourself, but someone might break out and do something that you've never been able to do before. So I don't think that is necessarily venture backable, but there will be these systems that will start to accrue value. That's number one. Also, I think the incumbent payment rails are going to really benefit from this, right? Because the thesis when it comes to application usage of AI has always been agent-to-agent commerce. And so that is another sector where I think value will start to accrue. Outside of that, I have a tough time trying to be like, hey, there's this agent product here that's investable today. I have a question mark around that, but again,
because there are zero moats, right? I mean, in the world of agents, are there any moats anymore?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Kelvin.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of interest, right, with agents, but I think increasingly that will sort of shift from the agents can do so much to actually how do you monetize this?
Yeah.
Right, and whether the platform actually has certain integrations that give them a direct, connection to the organizations that they're going to be working with that ultimately allows them to monetize, right? And do they, through the process of rolling on these agents, are they able to collect proprietary data that sort of makes the stuff useful, right? And I think that's going to be the challenge in terms of identifying these agentic platforms to invest in. I think the other area that is of a lot of interest to us is obviously the rails, as Anand pointed out, because I do see a world where agents will automatically transact, right? And people will create a wallet for these agents, and they will transact not just with traditional companies, they will transact amongst agents themselves. I think where Web3 rails come in is when you need a lot of these microtransactions, right? And I think Web3 can facilitate all of that, without the human sort of approval and authentication, and without banks being involved, and so on and so forth.
I'm guessing this crowd is filled with individuals who are building something or involved with a project that they eventually want to bring to investors and to VCs. What advice do you have for those in this audience and watching on a live stream of how to, not necessarily how to approach you, but rather what do you wish more builders were doing before they go to investors? Besides, make sure you've done your homework, but besides that, what advice do you have for the crowd?
I'll say a few things. First and foremost, again, I don't mean to sound like a doomer when I say this, but if there's only one thing you could take away from this, I'd say anything that you thought can be built with software will get built with software now. Like there's no chance that if you are going to dream of something, it is going to get built. It has just become that trivial. And I'm someone who grew up as a traditional software engineer, and the kind of innovation we're seeing with code now is unprecedented. So that's number one. So let's just riff on that for a second, right? if that is true, then how are software companies going to win? How does something become venture backable? So you kind of have to apply that rubric. So I'm just being transparent with you about that. You go full stack, right? You kind of have to figure out, like, it's not just software, but maybe there's a hardware component to it as well. Now, I would not have said this 5 years ago, because in Silicon Valley, we grew up with this mantra that hardware is hard. Don't touch hardware. Never invest in hardware, right? But that is changing. So naturally, that transcends into areas like robotics or things that we can touch and feel, brain-computer interfaces, things that we previously couldn't think was possible are now going to be possible, right? So you kind of have to do that, or you have a regulatory moat of some sort, or you have some go-to-market advantage that no one else has. So just to zoom out, if it's going to be done in software, it will get done. You may not be the only one. You're not going to be that N of one founder anymore. So that's the second thing. Lastly, I'll say, and this is something that is even as I see my 13-year-old start to imagine that any problem is solvable. And she's not a coder, she's not a founder, none of those things, but she believes that she can solve problems now using things like Claude, which is unbelievable. Like, I didn't grow up with that mindset. I was like, oh, there's always a barrier between where I am and what needs to get done. So I would just use those tailwinds to try to solve problems that are really, really hard. So yeah, use your advantage to what you think you can build. Know that you might not be the only one, but try to think about ways in which you can truly differentiate, whether it's regulatory arbitrage, maybe you have some unique advantage in go-to-market, marketplace network effects. Those are going to start to become way more important, and that's the rubric that we would apply for investment for an investment.
That's a great real talk, splash with cold water, not Kool-Aid drinking. I love it. Kelvin, you're the final word. Advice you have for the builders in this crowd.
Well, I think the important thing is to think about what your unique advantage is, right? What is your moat? As Anand sort of said, I think 12 months ago when we started looking into many of these AI startups, it was just about DAC and maybe in some cases a nice demo, but a lot of the projects were just pretty much ChatGPT wrappers, right? But I think the market sort of moved beyond that right now, where people are starting to ask, what is your moat? I mean, do you have a regulatory moat? Do you have, a data proprietary moat? What is your moat, right? So I think understanding that is very, very important. And obviously, if you have already a live sort of application and already have users and the unit economics look interesting, I think that sort of makes our jobs a lot easier.
Amazing. Gentlemen, thank you both. Thank you all.
Thank you. That was awesome. Nice to meet you. Yeah.